We like to start every episode with the disclaimer that we are not professionals. Our conversations are solely based on our personal experiences, thoughts, and opinions. Nothing discussed here is meant to be taken as professional mental health or medical advice. If you have questions or need assistance, please seek the help of a licensed professional.
Discussions in this podcast may sometimes revolve around heavy material such as abuse, grooming, religious trauma, and more. Please listen with caution and prioritize your mental health first.
Welcome to Trauma Bondage,
the podcast where we talk about trauma, kinks, and non-traditional lifestyles and relationships from a queer lens.
We're your hosts,
Brigitte
and Beth.
Welcome to Trauma Bondage. Hey. Clankety drinkety. We're having a good time today.
We're having a great time today. This is our first tipsy episode, which is really surprising.
Honestly,
this is our first tipsy
I feel like
episode.
we should be drinking a hell of a lot more with all the shit that we talk about.
That's what I'm saying.
Thank God we don't have an alcohol problem. But
no, but we chose like the most factual historical episode to be the tipsy one because like we just want to make sure it doesn't get boring.
It's just not that serious.
It's just not that serious.
What is it you were saying?
The unserious history of kink 101. Because it's so fucking unserious. You'll figure out why.
It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of stuff about sex and BDSM and kink and like fetishes and all kinds of shit that came from like some really weird places, really weird interests, sometimes religious, like affiliated, or like just customs in different areas throughout time. So there's some really fun ones and there's some really weird ones. And then there's some people you're going to be thanking.
I was going to say there's some surprising ones. Also, like, the thing that I learned when researching this episode is that kink has been around for
forever.
Ever.
It's not fucking new.
No. Like, and I feel like the stuff that we have documented, like, the reason that there's, like, a stopping point to the documentation is just because, like, it was so long ago that we've lost a lot of, like, history.
Lost a lot of the history. We've lost a lot of culture. We also lost a lot of art. And that also plays into what we've talked about when it comes to, like, the learning environments that we're in, especially with our country, especially when you get Christianity involved. Like,
we learned that Christianity ruined everything.
Christianity's just not fun. What is it? Chapel Roan? You're not fun! Like, that. That's how I feel about it.
minus the degradation kinks that you brought out in a lot, of people. I think that...
Me?
No, Christianity.
Oh.
I was speaking to Christianity as if it was like a person, you know?
Yes, you're completely right.
Yeah.
Yes. I was like, when did I do that?
I mean, maybe you have.
Maybe
I don't know.
I have.
You are kind of mean sometimes. I like it when you yell at me.
Sometimes.
Sometimes
you don't.
Sometimes I'm like,
you want to make eye contact with me.
literally sensitive. Don't fucking talk to me.
Don't be mean to me.
Okay, so we found like an actual like historical timeline of kink. We're gonna talk you guys through it as best as we can.
I'll start us off.
We're just gonna start us off because there's one thing I really want to talk about.
She's obsessed with it, so here you go. So I guess what was it? The recorded history of like this timeline of kink in general starts in 3200 BCE.
Which like when even was that?
I don't know.
That?
You know,
What
there's
else
like a
was
history
happening
where it's like
during that
BC is supposed to be like before Christ, and then like what AD is after death, and it's not actually that at all.
That was the only thing that my Christian education.
Yeah, that's what we were all taught, at least in this country. But like that's what we were taught. It's not that.
What is it? Can you correct it? No. Okay. Never mind. We're getting sidetracked.
Well, hold. No, I can just Google it.
Okay. What actually is our way of recording timelines in history?
AD stands for Anno Domini, which is Latin for in the year of our Lord. Oh no, this is wrong. This is a Christian site.
No, the American Google has blocked all resources.
It actually is. It's so Christian based, but it's not. I know it's not because I literally just looked this up not that long ago.
This is a side note. We don't need to get into the details of
We're not going to go into the deal. I'm just going to say I don't know specifically, but I did learn recently that it's not after death before Christ. That was just infused when Christianity came to power. That's what I'm going to say about it.
Basically, Christ does not matter that much.
One time I Googled if Jesus has a middle name.
Jesus has a middle
Yeah,
name?
like Jesus Christ, like first, last. Jesus H. Christ, like what does H
stand for?
Hell. I don't know.
Jesus Hell Christ.
But yeah, so it started in 3200 BCE.
Okay.
So it's all the way the fuck forever ago.
Yeah.
Long, long time ago in a town called Kickapoo.
Kickapoo?
You've never seen that movie. It's okay. She's never seen Titanic either, so like
I've literally
are we
never
surprised?
seen anything. Y'all can't make fun of me for that though.
Mesopotamia.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me.
Mesopotamia. So ancient texts describe the goddess Inanna, I hope I'm saying that correctly, whipping her followers to induce sexual frenzy. That's where we get started, right? So it's a lot of gods. It's a lot of gods, goddesses, stuff like that. That's going to come up. I think that's like something that I equate, especially with like Greek, which we'll probably get into. I'm sure that's coming. But she would do that. It's a cult. It was a cult. It was a religious cult that included a variety of sex rituals, sacred prostitution. Like they worshipped all kinds of stuff around that. They were all about like protectresses. She was the protectresses of prostitutes, the patroness of like ale houses. So kind of like Dionysus.
I'm literally obsessed with her.
Yeah. They would include that all within her temples. So like that's what they were doing with sexual frenzy. And you're going to see that a lot in the timeline of like gods and the culture in various places, especially in like Europe or around Europe. Yes, Europeans, we love you. You guys are just having a great fucking time over there.
Freaky motherfuckers.
We're just like doing trad wife bullshit over here. Somebody help us.
In America.
Help us.
We personally are not.
No.
But we are surrounded by...
I do like to bake the bread, but...
That's...
Look.
But you do it in like a Subway, not in like a trad wife way. There's such a difference.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next recorded history of any type of kink was in 2000 BCE in Greece and Rome, and it was something called figging, which I didn't know about this. It's so silly.
I don't think I know what this is. All I know is that I really love figs.
Okay, well, it doesn't have to do with that.
And I can't get fresh figs here, and I'm mad about it. Somebody help me.
It is not fruit related, or not fig related, at least. So it was a method of peeling and putting ginger or radishes into the orifices of disobedient animals, slaves, or citizens. It was like a punishment in Greece or Rome.
What was it? Radishes and what?
Ginger and radishes.
It sounds spicy.
Are not great. It's like, please eat this not great thing. Also, can you imagine a ginger in your pussy?
No,
that would not feel great. It would not feel great.
It sounds spicy and not a fun spicy.
You fucking Greco-Romans.
It's not like the heated KY lube. But
it was for them.
Awful.
It was for them. Today we call this practice figging, but thousands of years ago it was known as gingering, or a word I can't pronounce. So yeah, it was...
Panadosis.
It was a way to humiliate people for adultery, homosexuality, or promiscuity. Please humiliate me. I love that. But, like, not with ginger.
Not with ginger.
Like, I don't really agree with this kink. I don't think that it... Okay, I don't have this kink. I'll say it that way.
Maybe that's where the creators of KY jellies got their ideas
Figging.
Figging. Right?
Yeah, I might try it and, like, come back to you guys and let you know how it was.
That's a spicy trauma. I'm just going to interject there. Have you ever had somebody, like, eat jalapenos and then go down on you?
No, but one time, oh my God. One time, I ate spicy edamame and then fucked my wife, and it was not good.
No, you didn't wash your hands.
I didn't wash my hands. I forgot.
Spicy fingers.
Because we got drunk, and, like, I literally forgot. I forgot. And every time we go eat edamame now, they're like, go to the bathroom. Wash your hands.
Get away from me.
Those are not going inside
I'm going to smell your fingers first. They have to smell like soap.
They literally were laying in a fetal position for at least 20 minutes. I felt so bad.
Baby.
Well, because baby.
But also, that would be painful.
Oh. You know, make me fucking feel something.
Ouchie. Ouchie.
Continue. You can take the next one.
I mean, the next one is really a little bit more about, like, corsets. It's less about kink. It's more about the beginning of fashion
gear.
Well, fashion, like the height of fashion including things that were fetishized, like corsets and lingerie and stuff like that. And that's when you're getting into, like, this was also Greece. This was still BCE, like 1600. So we're not even in Victorian times yet, which is where, like, in England, the corsets really came into play. Waist training came into play, tiny waists, covering ankles. If you showed your ankle, ooh la la, like the hand thing. Have I told you about the hand thing?
Yeah.
Like, in Russia specifically. So as a theater major for myself, I had to take Chekhov. So in Chekhovian times in Russia, it was a lot of like kissing of the hand and like slights. So we learned about slighting people, i.e. not like sliding, but like slighting.
Not sliding people.
Like if you're interested in somebody, you keep eye contact with them while you curtsy. Right. If you're the man, when you're kissing the hand, the higher up on the hand that you kiss, the closer you are,
the more you want
to the genitals. Basically, like because it's like these are the legs, and like the higher up you go on the hand is the closer to the genitals. So it's a very sexual, arousing thing. Also, just like sliding people by like curtsying and walking away, but like the corsets are a big part of it. Like it's the unlacing of the corset and all of that. So that's kind of started getting into the like slow burn because like I'm telling you right now, those things take for fucking ever to get out of, like a true traditional corset. Yeah. Not the ones that we have today. They're made for ripping off of you quite quickly. Yeah. They were not made that way. But like you would
No, but that was also like the time of chastity belts and shit like that.
Oh, chastity belts, corsets. Some of them were made with like freaking steel. Like if we start getting into like World War I and World War II, the corsets and like lingerie that women were wearing also had like titanium grade like steel, so that like you would be protected if a bomb went off. No fucking wouldn't, but like but it was hot.
Is that how they sold it?
It's sexy and like you're like a soldier in your corset, like
but women were literally passing
in your
out.
Armor.
They were literally like fainting and having organ issues because of these fucking things.
Yeah, and they were also like, especially in like Crete, Greece, like when this was going on, a lot of them were made, I don't even know where I'm finding this, but I just know this out of my brain, is that a lot of them were made with whalebone, and whalebone is extremely brittle, and so they would break, and they would like impale women. So a lot of the time when they were like, oh, I'm so faint and I'm fainting, it's because their like lungs were getting punctured by the whalebone in their corsets, and they would like die, and men would be like, oh, they're so delicate, they're fainting, let me catch them.
They're so delicate, like, they're literally bleeding
out for beauty. Like Jesus Christ. Jesus H. Christ. But
so some of the kink history is like obviously like trial and error.
I think all kink is trial and error.
Sometimes we do dangerous things and we don't realize that it's dangerous until we do it and someone dies. Yeah. That's why I'm glad I live in this time. Yeah. When a lot of shit's been tested and we know what's safe and what's not safe.
For the most part.
Okay, so the next one is 753 BC in Rome, Italy. There was a festival that was recorded to be had called Lupercalia. And it was an ancient Roman festival where men ran around naked, chasing women with flogging tools.
Consensually.
And whipping them.
These women loved it.
Yeah.
It was consensual.
They also whipped them with the freshly cut guts of sacrificed animals. Which isn't personally my thing, but like if you're into it, no kink shaming.
Culture. It was also like it was meant to be like about fertility. Yeah. That was the whole point of it. Is so like it's about life and creation, and that's what it was. So like at this time, that was normal. These women were said to be like really excited about it. Yeah. They're like, hell yes, I'm gonna have a baby. Whip me, daddy. Like that was it.
Exactly. Like, which we can all relate to.
Can we? I want to have a baby, whip me, daddy. I mean, if you have a breeding kink,
kink, yeah. I just assume everybody does, but I know not everybody does.
I definitely do.
If you don't, you should try it.
I love breeding kinks, but I like don't.
The other day, one of my friends told me that one of my friends that's never wanted to have a baby in her entire fucking life, she's always been very like anti-baby, told me that like there's a specific new guy that she's been seeing that she's like, I literally can't stop thinking about him getting me pregnant. And I was like, you don't actually want a kid, you just have a breeding kink. And she was like, what's that? So I had to explain it.
Oh,
and she
God
was like,
she was like, yeah.
She was like, actually, that's it. And I was like, please don't have a baby because you have a breeding kink.
Yeah.
Please separate the two. That's like for God.
I will say, like, the amount of men that have had breeding kinks, but they're like, but actually, can I like watch you take the morning after pill?
Yeah.
But I'm like, that's fine. I also don't want the consequences of our actions.
No, we don't want the consequences, but like that's why I love having a breeding kink as a lesbian, because it's never actually real.
Yeah.
Not like you're shooting blanks every time.
That's good. Anyways, I like that.
Continue.
Yeah. You're like, please move away from what I just said. Okay, the next one, which I personally think this would be really fun to just like have in my home, is the Tomb of the Whipping. Mm-hmm. Also, Italy. Italians, my God, do I love you. Can we just say, when I was in England studying abroad during the Olympics in 2012.
I've heard. What you did.
There were so many different people from so many countries, and I just made my way around the world, so to speak.
Literally, you said, I will have somebody from Germany and England.
I went on a food tour, baby. and I will say the Italian women,
the best.
They're doing some fun things. I was trying something from everywhere. We had Rome, we had Sicily.
I've heard Italian women are very spicy.
Sampling the wines, so to speak.
Yeah.
No, they're spicy. Yeah. Italians just in general are kind of known for that. They're very like
passionate
and open with their sexuality. There's not like a whole lot of like, oh, I'm so coy. Like
Italians passionate.
They're not like, ooh, coy. Like they're like, yeah, let's fuck. Like they're down. Like they're down. They're great. So I love you. Come visit me in Texas.
Do you know every Italian woman I've ever met is a Leo?
Really?
Yeah.
I've never fucking asked. I was a little busy. My mouth was full, but
God bless Italian women. It's too hot in here for this.
But no, Tomb of the Whipping. So yeah, I digress. So sorry, Tomb of the Whipping. Things I'd like to have in my home. This was a tomb. So named for the fresco on the walls. So if you are not an art history person, if you've never had an art history class, frescoes are essentially paintings or drawings or etchings of various scenes, sexual or not, on these walls, usually of like ancient tombs, sacred spaces. A lot of them are like, I don't know, museums now that you can go see. You can actually go see frescoes in like caves and stuff like that, even cave drawings. So that's what these are. So this was in also Italy. Like I said, love those Italians. This one shows specifically two men flogging a nude woman as they penetrate her.
Oh, shit.
So it's like drunken revelers, musicians, dancers, they're all painted on the walls here. And they also suggest that this was one of the locations that was connected with the cult of Dionysus, which is what I was talking about earlier. So Dionysus, if we're getting into that, is like Greek mythology. Mm-hmm. There was the idea that Dionysus was a god, but more like a demigod. Like he's like the son of someone. And I forget the full historical trajectory, but Hera essentially gives him madness that he can't control, and he figures out how to control it. But part of his madness is like desire and like sexual desire for the most part. So he is the Greek god of like wine, pleasure, ecstasy. So his cult, his following are, I will say, predominantly women that have come from like bad situations. He protects women, which that's why I'm like, I love Dionysus. He's great. They would have these festivals where the festivals are like, y'all get drunk. You drink a shit ton of wine and you have orgies.
I love that.
Like that was his thing. And it's all about like fertility, fruitfulness, vegetation, festivities. He's a huge patron of the arts and theater. Like it was all about spectacle and pleasure and ecstasy. So, but he had followers and cult followers and worshipers all over the place. That's kind of the point of like the gods, especially in Greek mythology, is that like you become more powerful and stronger and have more like abilities with the more people who worship you, more temples that you have anointed in your name, stuff like that. So I really dig that was the thing.
I feel like
and that he was always around.
The Greeks are very much like
the Greeks and the Italians. They have really had, I think, the largest influence on kink culture because they've always been just so open with sexuality and didn't judge.
Which I want to live in a world that exists like that all the time, because that's how I feel like I operate like normally.
Yeah.
And it's like weird in like the US, I guess, to be like that. But I'm like, why?
We're a young country.
I don't get it.
We're a young, technically, if you think about it, we're like a young country, and we established from England, which was like probably the most suppressed version during a time where there was a lot of strife between religious stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Not just like the what is it called? Not anarchy. Monarchy.
The monarchy.
The monarchy.
They were the anarchists that established
But like it was
the US.
It was like Protestants versus Catholics and this and all of this leading up to separation.
Yeah. Well, I want to live somewhere else. Moral of the story.
Greece.
The next one is the legend of Aristotle and Phyllis. And this was actually the birth of pony play, which I don't know how many of you guys know about pony play, but it originated in 350 BC in Macedonia. So it was basically like the theory or like the lore is that Aristotle was a teacher of Alexander the Great, while Phyllis was a courtesan and his mistress. So the legend goes that Aristotle advised Alexander to be wary of the charms of women, lest his judgment become clouded. Phyllis overheard this and set out to seduce and humiliate Aristotle, which I love her for that. That is like such a bad bitch move. Wouldn't you do the same thing?
What?
Yeah. Like if you hear somebody being like, don't like interact with like this thing that you are because like they'll do all these things to you. Wouldn't you be like, well, I'm going to make them do what they're saying that they don't want to do?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
So basically she said to him, as like a sign of her love, she wanted him to carry her like on his back, like a horse. Like he was her horse. She
like
rode
bridle
his back.
And all, like bit bridle and
as
everything?
A sign of his love.
Fuck yes.
To humiliate him. And then it became like a kink in history, like pony play. Have you ever met anybody that was into pony play? I don't think I have.
One would think I have because of all the fucking cowboys and farmers and blue collar workers that I like to fucking date, but so far, no.
No, I haven't either.
I guess there have been some men, like, I think it's not to the extent of that where they like want me to ride them around. No. But like different kind of riding. But like, I feel like it probably could be like a gateway drug into that if you really like pushed it. But I don't feel the need to do that.
Well, I think pony play was the first like type of like animal play that originated, but obviously there's some things that stemmed out of that, like
my noble steed
being walked on a leash, like
all of
those fetishes,
kind of like puppy play, stuff like that. Yeah, that totally makes sense.
Yeah,
it's like the start of like pet play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Ooh, I love that.
Long fucking time ago,
man.
Yeah,
man. Let's see. We're getting back into frescoes. There's a lot of. That's where like a lot of the documentation comes from because it wasn't word of mouth or like during a time frame when people didn't really read or write. Like it was all about the art. So you've got like the Villa of Mysteries, Italy. Once again, you've got frescoes in rooms of women doing initiation rites that are including offerings and like ritual whipping by like winged women, which sounds fucking awesome.
Yeah,
like,
I want to live there.
Yes. Yeah, but just like, and this is where we start seeing like a lot of Greek youth too. It might be in Italy, but again, a lot of Greek gods had a lot of worshipers in Italy during this time frame because I don't know, that's just the thing. So lots of cults for different gods, goddesses, and like flagellation and bondage. So that's where we start seeing that popping up in the history of it. Probably was there before, but like this is the documented pieces that you see in the time frame, which I love. I will get into flagellation as we come to it because I'm sure it's on its way.
It is.
It's on its way.
It's on its way with
I won't run off with that one just yet.
No, Kama Sutra is the next
one. Kama Sutra. This is something that we use to this day.
Yeah. So India really like pulled their weight on this one because they are not documented in anything else.
And it's around to this day. You can go buy it at Barnes and Noble. You can buy the Kama Sutra at Barnes and Noble, my friends.
200 BC. India decided to just,
go wild.
Go crazy.
Let's try every position ever known to mankind. And
so
not.
The things that we find with like the origins of Kama Sutra involve biting, scratching, and hitting. So impact play.
Everything I enjoy.
Literally. Basically just like if you're a masochist, this is your fucking dream. Or a sadist, this is your dream. So their motto was, all the places that can be kissed can also be bitten.
That is... Preach. Yes. That is so true. All the places that can be bitten can also be kissed.
Slay, India.
Or licked.
Yes.
So yes, correct. And hit, honestly. Slap that shit.
Yeah, there's obviously like a large body of work when it comes to Kama Sutra. Like, I can't go through all of it in this episode, but like...
We highly encourage you to go buy one or support your local library.
Go buy a book on it. It's good. It's really good. One of the first like BDSM, which I didn't know at the time was BDSM, but style books that I bought was Kama Sutra. I had like and it had like visuals in it too. It had like little people
they'll show you
doing
like
all
the pictures
things.
of like people in the different positions and like it tells you a lot of the one I've read tells you like what it's stimulating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's literally like a 101 on like how to actually
Kinky
fuck.
101, like how to fucking fuck well.
Yeah, it really is.
Thank you, India.
200 BC is when that was written.
So, that's crazy. So if that tells you anything, it's been fucking around forever.
Forever. This is not new, guys.
Forever. Ooh, is this flagellation time? Just look, it's the Satyricon, okay? It's
so
Italy again.
She's so ready.
I love talking about flagellation. It's so weird. Flagellation and dildos is like I have random knowledge about, and I will never understand. I don't know if it's like the media I consume or having a theater background or anything like that. It's all come from like various art forms that I've just like learned about it because I was like, ooh, what is this? Nobody ever asked to see my Google history, please, because it's ridiculous.
I want to see it. You would probably show it to me.
I literally was talking about it with my dad yesterday because we both have like ADHD fucking stuff. And the first thing on it was Stegosaurus. I was looking up fucking dinosaurs. Like, I don't know why. I couldn't tell you why. So, yeah, don't ask.
The ADHD rabbit hole.
ADHD. Yeah, no, it's really bad. But yeah, so this is Satyricon. So it's a work of fiction by Gaius Petronius that includes a story of flagellation for sexual arousal by a devotee of the fertility god Priapus. So we're getting into the writings now of everything. So Satyricon, flagellation. This is where I'm going to go down my rabbit hole of flagellation and how it is connected to Christianity in a lot of ways. So for those who do not know, it's usually self-flagellation is like the whole point of it, especially when it comes to Christianity. So it's a practice of like flogging yourself with like whips, chains, switches, i.e. like birch rods, stuff like that. Like, and it really came into play during puritanical times. So if you start looking at like the Crucible, if you've ever watched the TV show Salem, because it's kind of a Crucible adjacent thing, during that time frame is when flagellation really came to play, because what you had was these men at the heads of these churches that were enacting some very like aggressive consequences to things. Right? Like if you have read or watched anything about the Crucible, they were just like killing girls, right? It was the witch hunt, like Salem witch trials. Salem, the TV show, obviously is quite an aggressively fictionalized version of it, but it still has some historical context in it, and flagellation plays a part in it. So you've got these, I don't know if they would technically, they're not priests. I grew up in Catholicism, so all I ever talk about is priests, but like the head of the church is not only enacting these consequences, but if he feels like he is sinning, which was a lot of the time, or like as part of his ability to confess or relinquish his sins and be forgiven, was self-flagellation. So if you read between the lines on this, you had a bunch of men at the head of these churches or groups or even entire towns where like they put everything into the person who was like the religious head, were sadists. And they were self-sadists, but it would also be enacted on everybody within that town.
They were sadomasochists.
Fear-mongering. They were sadists. What it was.
Yeah.
I guess, sadomasochists, but like sadists in a lot of ways, but because they were like inflicting that pain on themselves, but they were also inflicting that pain on others in a lot of cases. Yeah. So you can go into the things where like they would put people in like those iron bowls and like put a fire underneath them and like burn them alive in them. Like that's like the sadism. But when it comes to self stuff, you had things where like they had mechanisms that were metal that would be put all around their torso, and they would tighten it and tighten it and tighten it until they were literally just like bleeding, and they would wear it all day under their shirts and stuff like that. They would flog themselves to the point where they were just like completely covered in scars and stuff like that. But it was just, a lot of them are portrayed to have gotten a lot of sexual gratification out of it, but they equated the sexual gratification with God's acceptance. Okay. Right? I get to have the release because God said I could, because I offered myself to the Lord based on how I beat myself.
Y'all are just kinky motherfuckers. God doesn't have anything to do with it. Yeah. Just kinky motherfuckers.
So yeah.
I'll also caveat everything Bridget just said by saying that, like, sadism is on a spectrum.
Fuck yeah.
And not every sadist likes to burn people alive. I just felt like I needed to say that. I don't want sadists getting a bad rap. Okay,
sadists
here.
are not necessarily murderers. Okay, like
that's the point. The Catholics took it to the extreme. Most sadists that I have interacted with are not like that.
Yeah.
There's a limit.
Yeah. That's when we say Christianity ruined everything. Purity culture ruined everything, because it completely, because obviously that shit was going on, like the heads of the churches, and then they were all like, but you have to be pure, blah, 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 blah. Like, they were turning around doing that shit.
Well, we know that the heads of the churches were always the biggest fucking hypocrites that ever existed, so that's not surprising.
Not surprising in the slightest. So yeah, there is my rant on flagellation.
But now that's obviously morphed into like an accepted part of the BDSM culture, where like hitting with like, again, floggers, paddles, whips, chains, all of that, like that is like a very standard practice in BDSM. Whether you like it or whether you like, I feel like the levels that you like it to can be different. Like some people don't like a lot of pain. So like, again, we've like come up with code in the BDSM world to be like, okay, do you want like this level of pain with this thing? Or do you want this level of pain?
Yeah.
So it's like we've created like safety mechanisms around these things to make sure that like people don't actually get hurt unless they like want to. But I feel like, again, when these things were originating, it was the wild fucking West. And there was no rules. The next thing that we're going to go into, which this is not kink related. This is more of just like the history of like queerness coming into play. In 203 CE, the first trans emperor of Rome is recorded, which is really fucking cool.
Emperor.
It was
leader.
A trans man as well, which is really fucking cool. So they gender him as she in here because I don't think they had the language to like gender people properly, but this person was a female at birth, assigned female at birth, but they very much like in their reign dressed male presenting. Yeah. Which is really fucking cool.
Yeah. They didn't really have a language for gendering. If you think about that became more of like a thing, not like recent, but like way more recently than this.
Yeah.
Even if you look at like various cultures, like Polynesian culture,
exactly,
like they had like a technical third gender always that was just like all genders, and it was
non-binary people have been
it didn't matter
accepted and like referred to in so many cultures outside of ours for literal like centuries.
Yes,
so trans people have been around for forever. Get with the times.
Support them and love them.
Support them and love them, or leave.
That's what we're going to say. Or leave. You can leave.
Or literally leave.
Okay, now we're going to get into China, which they rarely make an appearance, but I'm so glad that they did in this one because this one is so fun for me. So there was a consort there that whipped China's emperor. Like, that was the whole thing. Like, he was really into it. But on top of this was a courtesan that was also known as being the, like, first person to start foot binding during that time frame, which like foot binding was all about like women having these very small, very dainty feet. That was the whole point, right? She started it. And it's because she was remembered for having small and lovely feet to begin with. She was doing the foot binding, and the emperor really liked to like caress and kiss and lick her feet. He had a fucking foot fetish. Yeah, he had a foot fetish on top of that. And then their relationship, like, what is it? It is said, instead of a concubine waiting on the emperor, this emperor liked to wait on her. He made tea for her. He massaged her. It is also said that she would like beat him with a stick, like whipping him, and that he took pleasure in it. So he was a sub to his consort, even as the emperor. Like there was a very drastic shift in power play
Which a lot of times people in power love to be submissive sexually. That is not a new thing. That has been a thing for literal centuries again.
Yeah.
Because it's like the whole thing about being a sub that a lot of people get out of it is being able to relinquish control.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, like, if you are in control a lot in your daily life, like, it is very nice to have times where you're not in control. So that does not surprise me.
Yeah.
At all.
That's how I feel about it.
That's how I feel about it, too. I'm like, I literally make the rules all the time. Please tell me what
Somebody
to do.
else do it for me.
Please tell me what to do. I will do it, as y'all saw earlier. Next one is masochism.
Yay! Sorry. Woo! Masochism! Wee!
You guys know from season 1 what masochists are, or you should, but if you haven't listened,
you should go back and listen.
Masochists are people that like receiving pain or degradation, any flavor of things that people would typically consider like discomfort. In 1480, this originated in Italy, the Italians once again. Essentially in like a body of work by Giovanni Pico, he talked about, and it was from a male perspective, about other men being masochistic, and like explained in the book like what that feels like and how men like receive pleasure from being degraded by women, which I receive pleasure from degrading men. So this is like a literal perfect match. The end.
Well, that also plays into like what was coming next, and that was, I think, widespread. Like masochism, I think, took hold because like over in England, right after that, you had the start of birching.
I don't think I've heard of this.
Birching, so it's I mean, it's twigs.
Never mind. Yes.
It's twigs. So like that's why they call switches.
Yeah.
Not like BDSM switch, but like an actual switch. So if you're in the musical theater world and you've ever seen Spring Awakening, there's a moment where, the guy, like, he goes to like a delinquent school and he gets beaten with a birch rod. And so like beatings were normal. Let me tell you, I have been hit with one of these things. They hurt like fuck. Like far worse than any like paddle play or anything like that. They are literally meant to welt on the first go, and there is really no level of like control.
Yeah.
You're either in pain or you're not getting hit, and that's it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people in power during this time frame, because there was a lot of suppression with things, like they would go and go and go and go and go. So you'd have a lot of people that were like maimed from these birch rods.
Yeah. You have to be careful. You can get some scars from this shit.
Yeah. So you have like stuff like that where they're administering it as like corporal punishment, not just for adults, but like children in schools. Like it was starting very early. So I feel like that, like, here's some trauma.
Spanked as a child? Like properly spanked? I know that.
No, like I would get like a swat. Like spankings didn't really happen.
Okay.
My thing was humiliation. I hated humiliation. I still do to this day.
Yeah.
So my thing was like, if I was doing something naughty in the sense where like it was public, so like spanking or whatever is what normal people would do during that time frame, mine would be go put your nose in the corner. I would have to find a corner wherever the fuck I was, and I would have to stick my nose in it and stand there until
Have you ever let a dom do that to you, or have you always been like, that's a no for me because of what
I do. I mean, usually I get punished in other ways instead of that, but that has been used on occasion. Yeah.
I was just asking because I feel like it's really interesting. This is a little bit of a digression, but like it's really interesting how some people turn their childhood trauma into a kink, and then some people still cling to it as like, no, I never will let this happen to me because of what happened to me when I was younger.
I'm difficult. Personally, if we're talking about me, I am difficult to punish because I like all of the standard shit. Yeah. Like I'm just like, do it. Like, do it. So that's one of the ones where I'm like, oh, I don't like it. So that is used when I'm like being my most difficult.
An actual punishment.
And I'm like, fine. But like.
Which we've talked about. There are punishments and punishments in BDSM.
Yes.
Like you have to know the difference.
Most of people's standard punishments are punishments for me. So like I win. Same. Most of the time.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, shit. Like you're going to edge me all night. Oh.
Poo.
That's so sad for me. Like.
So yeah. But. Oh, fuck. Just
casually tipping beer.
It's literally just on me though. Not even
I love that you have a beer and wine.
Just let me live my life.
Y'all, we told you this was a tipsy episode.
I need it. But yeah, so birches, they actually, in the 1860s, the Navy, because corporal punishment, again, they abandoned the use of cat o' nine tails to favor the birch rod because it did worse.
Damn.
Yeah. Which if you've ever been beat with a cat o' nine tails, then if you know, you know.
I haven't, but I had an ex that had a literal paddle that was a huge, like, it almost looked like a cutting board. And it was like this long. And it had trauma written on it because it was something that their parent used on them. When I tell you that's the most pain I've ever been in, was getting like 5 hits with that thing. Like I could barely walk for like 2 days after.
Yeah.
Like it looks like kind of unassuming and it looks like it's not really going to hurt, but like be careful. It's nothing compared to, like, the BDSM paddles you buy, like, for BDSM use.
Yeah.
Like, those don't actually hurt that bad.
It depends on where you get them. So, a lot of, like, are we talking about cat o' nine tails?
The studded ones hurt, but...
Well, like, cat o' nine tails, is that what we're talking about?
No, I'm talking more about, like, an actual leather paddle.
Oh, like a standard slaughter,
those don't really hurt that bad.
Yeah. They're, like, cat o' nine tails when we get into that, because I think that'll probably be coming up here to talk a little bit, because they switched out in favor for the birch rods. So, like, these days... Most cat o' nine tails are made with like a soft like leather.
Exactly.
Because it's meant to like be a little bit teasing and stuff like that. Mine is made out of chains. So
I've been hit with one that has a chain with spikes on it.
Yeah, spikes. Like that. Oof. Like
that is not for the weak. I will say that. Okay, so the next one is actually Germany makes an appearance.
Germany
did
We're
something
getting into
good
Europe.
in history.
We're getting into like Germany, England, France. Like this is and
this is more recent.
Well, you're also seeing like the creep out from Italy and Greece because that's where a lot of like the cults were and all the sexual festivals and and it's all starting to creep into Europe.
Europe. So in 1639 in Germany, there was an actual like medical text called the Treatise on the Use of Flogging in Medicine and Venery that was put out by a doctor. And he literally basically medically talked about how whipping could be like, it could induce sexual arousal. So this was like one of the first times somebody in the medical field was like, wait, scientifically though, this thing does actually work sexually. And here's why.
And this is before they could watch like brain activity and stuff like that. They were looking at other things.
Well, now we have so much research on kink and like BDSM and what it does to people psychologically and why people are interested in it and like why it can be very like healing for people. Back in this time, that was non-existent. Like these were just very much seen as like out of the social norm activities that were like not okay because there wasn't a medical understanding of like what it can do to a human being. So this was like the first text that was ever released, which this guy was fucking brave when I think about it. It's like in Germany in the 1600s.
Oh yeah.
Talking about why people like to be spanked.
Well, that's how you like lose your career when you start talking about things that people are like, no.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah. Good for him.
Good for him.
And then we get into more like talking because I'm gonna skip over Cat o' Nine Tails. We've already talked about all of that and all of that. But like, John Cleland publishes Fanny Hill, also in England. Just making its appearance. Yeah, it pops in and out quite a bit. Like they had stuff going on. They were just a little more quiet about it, but that's also British culture. They're a little bit more subdued even to this day. That's just their thing. And that's okay. But this is Memoirs of a Woman of Pleasure. I love it. I'm like, that would be the book that Bethany writes if she were to write one.
You're just trying to convince me to write an erotica novel, and I think that I probably will.
It was published in 1748, so we're starting to get into like a time frame when we're like, oh, this makes sense.
Like we have ancestors we can trace back to these times.
Cool. Love that. It describes a sexual sadomasochistic session in a brothel. And here comes the birch rods. Self-flagellation with birch rods. My favorite fucking things. Yay. So like we're just getting into like just like self-beating, or they would have like a woman come in and beat a man, and then she would also get sexually aroused by not only administering, but also he would. Like it was just self-gratification in a lot of ways. And like I'll probably get into this a little bit too, where we talk about like the medical check-ins. on things. And at one point we're going to get into like hysteria in women and what that looked like and what they were doing to like cure hysteria. So also England. Love you guys. But yeah.
Okay.
It's cool.
The next one is kind of along the same lines, but this is in France, which can we talk about how the French are freaky as fuck?
Oh, yeah.
The French are like known to be like very open, sexually expressive, like
oh la la.
kinky people that like, yeah. If you've watched French films, you understand.
J'adore.
Have you watched Blue is the Warmest Color?
Of course I have. Oh my God, the whole fucking sex scene where they're just like
literally
tripping
the
the whole
best
time.
lesbian sex scene of all time.
It was like, that came out when I was in college.
It was real.
It came out in college when I was around the time that I was like coming out, and I was just like,
same.
I'm so gay.
Fun fact, I've never
Somebody
seen the
do that
movie.
to me
I've
immediately.
Only seen the sex scene. Only seen the sex scene. I was like, the movie doesn't really matter. Just the sex scene.
The movie is tumultuous at best, and it does not give like the best portrayal of like lesbian relationships and all that. Like,
but
it's messy
lesbian
as fuck.
sex, it was spot on. It was spot on. I was like, this is actually like what I've experienced.
I wish that I could go back in time and have a video of me
I do too.
watching it just the first time, because
For you
the other times
specifically.
after that, I don't need to have on video. But if I do, somebody needs to pay for it. But but the first time, I think I was like literally drooling because I couldn't shut my mouth because I was just like, what are these feelings? What is this?
Yeah.
It was so good. That's just like a
anyways.
lesbian, like, you have to go watch that. That's just lesbian culture. It's like Blue's the Warmest Color, but I'm a cheerleader. Oh God, what are some of the other? I don't even know. There's many good
not.
ones.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's not a lot of good lesbian films.
Like Graham and But I'm a Cheerleader, where they're fucking in the doghouse. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm in.
Yeah.
Woof.
So basically, France pops in because an author and philosopher, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, published an
Jean-Jacques
article.
Rousseau.
There we go. I don't know French. He published an article about how he literally couldn't get turned on unless he was being spanked by a woman.
Same.
Jean-Jacques, we understand you. We understand
There was
what
a
it takes.
thought in my head.
Same.
Cool. Same.
So like men are starting to like talk about it, you know, in history. They're starting to be like, wait, but we actually like this, and like it's kind of acceptable to talk about, but like he probably still got some shit.
Yeah.
He probably still got some shit.
Yeah.
But you notice in historical context, a lot of this stuff, a lot of it was led by women way, way, way in the past.
Yeah.
Like the earliest stuff was led by women or like mythological female figures.
Like brothels,
Exactly.
prostitutes.
But
really
in the
lifting that up.
in
That's
the
what it
last
was.
like couple of centuries, it's been just men. And I think honestly, there was a lot more going on with women at the time, but it just isn't recorded in history because history erased women.
Yeah. And now there's like this whole power dynamic with men
Yeah.
running the world.
It's annoying.
So yeah, we're going to skip through a few things. So you got France, more doctors, more flagellation. That's what we're looking at. We're looking at like more BDSMs. Thank you for listening to part 1 of the Unserious history of kink. We're going to turn this into a 2-parter, so stay tuned for the next one.
If you like today's episode, follow us on social media at Trauma Bondage Pod. Follow Beth at Modern Day Lilith and Brigitte at Your Fae Femme.
If voyeurism is your kink, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Trauma Bondage Podcast. Production by Instrumental Media. Special thanks to D. Dumpy and Wolfstar for music.